I just did, so
Yeah,
it looks
okay.
like it's...
You're on.
Okay. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Nick Bonanno. I am a producer and the senior official for the United Wrestling Network, and would like to welcome you into our conversation this evening. I'm sitting here with David Marquez. He's the president of the United Wrestling Network, and of course, executive Rick Bassman, who's here to join us and lead us through our next steps in the process to get you more involved in our programming and our presence in the world of professional wrestling. And so today, what we first wanted to start talking about is the story that is the United Wrestling Network and how it's developed over the last 10 years going forward into the future. David, did you want to, I guess, start telling us about what the origins of United were and where that kind of came out of?
Well, the first, thanks everybody for joining us. I hope you're having a good Friday. I hope you're staying safe. The United Wrestling Network kind of started out of necessity. It started in 2011, I believe, because I lost the rights to promote as the National Wrestling Alliance. And I was part of the NWA off and on probably for a good, 20 some odd years to that point. A lot of people, when they thought about the NWA in recent times, they thought about me as being kind of a big cheerleader for the organization. A lot of people thought the organization was dead. And I disagreed with all that. So we started Championship Wrestling from Hollywood as NWA Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And we secured time on KDOC TV here in Los Angeles. Originally, what a lot of people probably don't know is the reason the series even exists, or the show or the promotion today, is because I was working with Big Vision Entertainment, and we came out of doing Wrestling Society X for MTV. And Kevin Kleinrock and Houston Curtis there, we did those half hours for them. Dealing with the NWA board of directors was very difficult, and the membership as a whole was very difficult. So we had leadership problems, this, that, all kinds of other things. So we elected Bob Trowbridge, who was our attorney at the time, who was also the attorney for Jim Crockett, as our executive director. And so Bob had ultimate say. And I just kind of figured out through his courtesy how to become the 800-pound gorilla in the corner. And it was television. The entire organization was against TV. They were looking at dividends. They were looking at what can we get back, all the little pennies and crumbs and stuff all over the place. And I just went ahead and did it. There were many people who had TV experience who never thought I can get a TV show on in Los Angeles. So for people who don't know, LA is an extremely difficult market. It's the number 2 market in the country, right after New York and before Chicago. That's based on the population of Los Angeles. And all the TV stations here mostly are corporate stations or ran by studios or the networks. So you're dealing with Disney, NBC, Comcast, CBS itself, at the time Tribune Broadcasting with KTLA. So through Houston and Kevin and myself, we got a meeting with KTLA. And that's why and how this show even exists. A man by the name of John Mazurski, I believe is his name. I think he's still there as the vice president and general manager of KTLA, had just returned from WLS in Chicago, an ABC station owned and operated by Disney. And he was going to bring back KTLA. They had an imaging campaign of what the CW, because they're a CW affiliate. So it was all really network looking. But he wanted to bring back the classic Channel 5. If you live in Los Angeles, you know what I'm talking about. If you grew up with the Gene Autry version of KTLA in Western or Golden Western Broadcasting, he wanted to bring all that back. So we got the meeting, and luckily for us, he worked on the Olympic Auditorium wrestling show back in the day. He was a camera operator, and in the 70s. So he was really really interested to be involved in wrestling some way or another. Another man who was in the meeting, his name was Don Carper. and he was a big account executive for KTLA and Tribune on the West Coast. So we shot these shows as NWA. I lost the rights. We left the organization. And so all of my friends in the NWA kind of went their own way. And it's not that we were floundering or that we lost our identity. I felt that there was a need for cooperation again, because we were just getting some wonderful momentum out of the 7 Levels of Hate with Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana. Twitter and social media were just becoming a thing. And I saw, like, when Cabana won the NWA world title the first time, all of the attention that he got on social media, tons of it. Stars and celebrities were retweeting and talking about it, wrestling personalities, comedians. And that was a big eye opener to me. So I felt, okay, so let's try to bring people back together. And I came up with the name United Wrestling Network, because television was going to be a big piece to what we're going to do. Originally, to be a part of the United Wrestling Network, when we were trying to bring together different promotions to work on this, part of the mandate was you had to produce local television, which is probably one reason why an awful lot of people have not heard about the United Wrestling Network as a global thing, because I guess I was too naive in thinking that everyone could just do it. I learned quickly, and why, going back to what I originally said, the NWA folks were against it, because people couldn't do it. I just thought it was easy because it's something that I do. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So the United Wrestling Network name, the network part, came out of being a television network, not necessarily a sanctioning body or a collective. It was that I felt it was easier to sell it to advertisers and for syndication. So another link to the network name was Jerry Lewis' Labor Day Telethon was called the Love Network. So it kind of all came together, and I just used that network piece to put television or broadcasting into it. And plus, we would be networking with other promotions in time. So it's been around a long time. We do have World Tag Team Champions. We do have a World Television Champion. And we have 2 owned and operated regional promotions with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Championship Wrestling from Arizona. And the idea of the cooperative of the 2 promotions working together, I dare say SmackDown and Raw. But if you kind of look at it from that perspective, ideally, that's kind of how that's sort of set up. But we were going to have a traveling world's champion and whatnot. But today, I think it's a little more difficult, and I might be getting ahead of the story, but it might be a little too difficult for a lot of promoters to understand what a cooperative is, since they've never really been a part of one, using shared resources and stuff like that. So it's that's why it hasn't become as big as, let's say, the resurgence of the NWA, because that off the shoot was one owner, one voice, one mission. Now, with a cooperative, you're dealing with, let's say, between 4 and 13 promoters who all have their own ideas, and they don't necessarily think that they need you to get to where they want to be.
Well, I would definitely not only echo that, but multiply that by 10. I've seen that for so long in this industry. But one thing I find, David, as an outsider coming to your party late, is I want to back up for a second. I first saw Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. When I sold UPW in 2007, I stopped watching wrestling. And I don't remember how I first came across Hollywood, but I remember my first impression was, wow. I always knew, David, that you know what you're doing. You talked about people, you figure people could just do it. You now know that's not the case. I know that's not the case. You're one of those guys who's always been so talented and so able just to get stuff done in this business. And so when I saw the Hollywood product and how good it was, I wasn't surprised. I'm like, that's David's work. It makes sense to me. What I didn't even know existed until about 5 or 6 years later was that there was an organization called United Wrestling Network. And it's because, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's all the notoriety in my mind, at least to that point, was with Hollywood. And I'm very glad to be part of United now. And what attracts me to it is what you have put out there already insofar as there's a lot of promoters out there, and I know this through talking to people the past half year on your behalf, that are aware of what you're doing, that want to be part of it, but don't really know what to do and how to take that next step. And I love what you're doing and what we're doing together, because I think unlike the NWA back in the day, there wasn't really the opportunities that are present now. The world wasn't as connected. We talk about shared resources now. We've got this thing called the internet, which allows us to do so many different things that couldn't be done even 15 years ago. So I love the fact that you have already connected loosely, at least, with people like Matt Yaden at Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling and guys like Luke Hawx in New Orleans. And I think, with what you've created, with your leadership, with guys like Nick Bonanno and Jeremy McPeak and Todd Kennelly and the crew you've assembled, I think we have a really unique opportunity to connect with guys like Matt Yaden in Denver and really lead them into being more successful. So I'm pretty psyched to be here, and I'm glad you've created United, Ben.
Well, thanks. I'm glad we've kept it going this long. The company as a whole has been around as Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It's a decade on the air. Not until the pandemic that we're going through have we even reran shows. We've done 52 original episodic weekly televisions for 10 years on now 132, 33 outlets. A lot of people argue with me when I say this, and it has nothing to do with ego. I've never cared for the term independent wrestling. I understand where it stems from. I understand the Tarantino piece to it, but in the 1990s, that made sense. ECW being independent from corporate WWE or Turner Broadcasting, I totally understand it. But today, it's, to me, the way that I see it is that we've reverted back to kind of the 60s. The territories are still here. They're just not called territories anymore. Now it's called Ring of Honor. Now it's called MLW. Now it's called United Wrestling Network. Now it's called the NWA. We're not necessarily hooked up the way that we used to be hooked up, but we are hooked up. It's evident. You can just do any type of a search and you'll see the cross-pollination of talent. You'll see guys traveling, whether they're going to Defy up north here on the West Coast, stopping at APW, and then coming down to work for us in Southern California or a promotion in Southern California. So the territorial type system still exists. I just hate calling it independent wrestling, because what people outside of wrestling or people within wrestling don't understand that the decision makers outside of wrestling, they don't know what independent wrestling is. It doesn't matter what generation it is either. They don't get it. So all you're doing is putting another layer or two of bullshit on top of your already heavily bullshitting presentations and trying to get people to recognize the genre that we're trying to produce. So even AEW, as fantastic and as broad as it is right now, or Ring of Honor that is ran by a multi-billion-dollar broadcast corporation, they're still being this because we're all being held to the branding and the marketing machine that is the WWE. So since we are on so many television outlets and that we do produce, and not only do we produce content, but we produce personalities, and people go on to a grander stages all over the world because of their experience that they've had here with the United Wrestling Network. So that's why I try to steer away from independent wrestling and just call us what we are. We're pro wrestling. Don't stereotype us more than you have to, because we're already sensationalized.
Yeah, man. Once again, I couldn't agree with you more. So, the executives out there, the ones that you mentioned before, I mean, who are the top guys over at AEW? Let's say apart from Chris Jericho, there's Kenny Omega. If we're going to reach out to the entertainment community at large and hopefully partner with some good organizations to help move United forward, unless it's Hulk Hogan or The Rock or Steve Austin, maybe a couple of others, nobody outside of pro wrestling knows who Kenny Omega is. And that's not saying anything negative about Kenny. He's amazing, especially within our world. We all admire him and look up to him. The point is, you are so right. You produce a product that's for larger public consumption. There is no differentiation. And I want to back up to something, because you went over this so quickly. So you've been doing this for 10 years, been in a weekly program that long. So if my math serves me, that's about 500 hours, give or take, of quality program that you have produced. And what you also mentioned really quickly was 132, 133 outlets. Dude, that's staggering, man. That's like 75% market penetration in North America, is it not?
That's right.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, and I know you do this all day, every day. So to you, it's probably like, yeah, it's just another thing that I do. But when you think about the scope of that, so I know the answer to the following, of course, but I imagine people watching will have this question. What's the United staffing like, man? You have like hundreds of people working for you, being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to make all this happen?
Well, surprisingly enough, this number is going to sound big for regional pro wrestling. And it's interesting you say, the 500 episodes, 10 years. We have to also add in there Championship Wrestling from Arizona. Arizona also does 52 consecutive weeks. It has their own staff, it has their own talent, and their own budgets. So collectively, we do 104 hours, if my math's correct, a year between both shows. Arizona's now being distributed to a large audience as well. I think it's on about 30, 40 stations across the country. It's interesting, the staffing for this is so minimal. and
I was going to say, with Arizona, you must have thousands of employees being paid millions of dollars.
And as I was going to start this off, I'm not going to put anything out there that's not true. Our annual operating budget is a little over $1 million a year. Now, to most people in wrestling, they're going to be like, holy shit, $1 million bucks? Wow. No, those 20s, 50s, 75, 150s, $200, they add up. And when you're doing it as consistently as we are, it really adds up. And there are quarters where the ad revenue doesn't add up to what we're putting out. Collectively, and again, this is not bragging, in probably 15 to the last 17 years, I finally started to use the word investing instead of losing. We've invested collectively through all the series, the NWA, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, whatever you want to call it. Me, myself, David Marquez, as a producer, promoter, probably close to about $13 million all these years.
Okay, and that does sound big, and you're right.
Yeah.
The people that are in independent pro wrestling are going to be blown away by that. So I want to take it the opposite direction for a moment. I hope you don't mind me doing this. Our very able producer, Nick Bonanno, has put up across the screen here, I can see it, the little engine that could. And we've had a bunch of discussions about that. So I just want to put you on the hot seat for a second. Forget the math, because you and I both know that 13 million for all those years for everything you've done, by the time you're done, it's really not a lot of money.
That's right.
And I know that you've almost quite literally begged, borrowed, stolen to get that money. It's not like you're rolling in on big merch deals and that sort of thing. How many people, again, I know the answers to all this stuff, but I want to expose it for the people out there that hopefully are following United or really will follow United. How many people are making a full-time living working for United Wrestling right now?
Maybe six. Okay.
Maybe. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. And yeah, it sounds about right. You obviously would know better than I would. You're one of them. Nick is on screen. He's another. For the amount of work that you guys have put into this, just take yourself out of it for a second, David. Let's look at Nick, who's been sitting there silent up until now. The amount of work Nick puts into this, the amount of time, for the amount of talent that he has, as much dedication to the project, to the success of this company that he shows day in and day out. Is Nick earning a salary that is commensurate to his worth and his contribution?
Oh, no.
Okay.
None of us are.
Right.
Knowing everybody's real life situation, I know how to manipulate the budgets in order for them to survive. I would say that Nick's income is probably a 50-50 situation. A lot of people don't know this. He works for the government as well. So he does have a job on top of his other job. But I'll tell you, he spends way more time dealing with United Wrestling Network business from probably 6 a.m. until 1 a.m. the next morning while doing his regular job between 9 a.m. and, let's say, 5. So there's an awful lot going along with a guy like Nick. But then we have editors, and we have people logging, and we have writers, and we have publicity folks, and we have now social media management, and coordinating producers and executive assistants now, and all this type of stuff to try to keep it all together. And then we also have a corporate entity that's in Ventura County that is trying to make heads and tails of what we're trying to do here, And so there's that process, and those folks as well who are on a completely separate budget trying to keep it all going. So
yeah, and that's those are the good people in Ventura, Sharon and Crystal and the rest.
Sure,
who are working really hard.
Ken and George and Josh,
of course, Ken, yeah, the whole crew. But once again, these are all people, and I'm pushing on this for a reason, and I'll get to it in a moment. But I want to ask Nick a question first. So David talked about how much time you're putting into United as opposed to your other job. Why? Why do you put that much more into United?
Well, I would say in addition to my other job, not just as opposed to it. But the reason to put more into United is just that with my day job, there are extensive resources. Like you said, it's the government, so that's long been established. If we're trying to operate the United Wrestling Network on a budget that's going to keep us afloat and still on the air in over 130 stations and growing to more, we have to be able to all wear multiple hats. So I came on 5 years ago as just a referee. I talked to David about my interests. He knew I wanted to do some writing and producing. He and I have worked on several projects over the year before I even became office with United. And so in being able to produce Hollywood or Arizona and other things like that, I've been able to show my different talents that way. Now, having done all that, I do really enjoy being able to do that, having that kind of creative input, being able to help manage the company and show my different skill set across the board. Because I would say, unlike other people in the office who, even if they wear multiple hats, they're kind of all in the same lane. I like that I am able to do a bunch of different things, and I think that makes me more valuable to the company as a whole. And it allows me to interact with different kinds of things. So I'm just as much talking to, delivering the episodes to the stations as I am talking to wrestlers about what's happening in their match. And there's not a lot of people in wrestling, I think, that do that. And so I think all the things that I've been able to do because of that, because working with David and United, makes me multifaceted in a way that makes me more valuable elsewhere and here, more importantly, going forward. So what's the goal? So I've had a lot of room to grow, and I continue to do so. What's that? Cool.
What's the goal? Do you see this being your full-time deal at one point? This is it?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, good.
I think my track record so far has already shown that, and I would, even though we're operating on the current budget that we are, I think that if people are good at something, that they should aspire to make the most money that they can in that field. And since I'm able to wear, but also with that, sometimes you're not able to do as many things as you want if you're trying to only pursue one of them. So I'm able to pursue all the different avenues within that make up a wrestling company, while still being able to while still being able to benefit from all of them as well. So I guess to answer your question, I'm interested in doing everything. And I think as of right now, I still have been able to. And I've had to delegate more of my tasks to other people, more, I'd say, editing and things like that. I've had to, have people produce for me a little bit. But that's another part of the process. You go up, as you go up in any company, you have to learn what, you're only as good as your team. So if you develop a good team, then you're able to better facilitate the needs.
So another thing we do here, Rick, is, it says the little engine that could, so which is cute. While building this, at least over the last 5 years, we could have easily moved into office space in town. We're in Sherman Oaks, so it's a little more pricey. We could have gone to North Hollywood or Sun Valley, let's say, a little more back and north, and put an office together that's traditional and people come to work and whatnot. I kind of created a unique situation. So in pro wrestling, there's always been like a fighter house where when people come to a dojo setting or something, they live there, you know, they train there, they live there, they eat there, one another. So I kind of unintentionally did the same thing here in production. So knowing that we didn't have the resources to go out and put down $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month on office space, I went ahead and found a big house. In fact, 2 of them. So the property here in Sherman Oaks is not just the headquarters of everything, but it's also where we live and we work. My own little Epcot, if you will. We have the bedrooms that are converted into edit bays. We have kitchens that have microphones at times hanging off shelves. So to supplement people's incomes as well, they're allowed to live here. So at a much reduced rate. So we're doing everything we can, and everyone is vested in what we're doing who's here within the Albers situation. And that includes like our foreign language broadcasts. You know, they come, they collect the footage, then they go home to their places, come back. We supply them with the laptop, we supply them with the software, and they go back and forth, you know, because I can't have everybody here. It gets packed sometimes. And the tough part is, you know, most people can go home and leave work at work. Work is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all of us. I can't leave work because everything is just not just reminded me of work. It's just you can't walk by without seeing a note or without seeing an email or without across something that you would in your work environment, in an office, in a hallway, the water cooler. You know, here it's the refrigerator, and you're going to have those conversations that you normally would at work here. So it's unique. It's tiring. It's not necessarily the most proper situation, but it works for us, and hopefully in the next year or 2 we'll get out of this.
Yeah, Dave, have you been to you ever been to Dallas Page's house in Atlanta before?
No, but I've seen it. I know lots of guys that work there.
So you know the drill. Yeah, I went out visit Page a couple of times when the office was still in the. He has one of those McMansion things in Atlanta, and you know we all saw the resurrection of Jake the Snake. So you saw the house, and Page was there, Jake was there, Scott Hall was there, and probably a dozen guys at any given time, and very very energized environment, no doubt. I've been to your house, so it's not dissimilar at all. But it was always right there at the edge, 2 men, with Page just like ready to blow a stack at any point. And, you know, God bless him, he was able to expand, and he now has his own version of the Performance Center, and his house is now his house again. So it sounds like that's a goal as well. Is that right? Yeah,
you know, look, I'm pushing 50. I'd really not like living in the college environment for the next, 20 years. So I've made a choice. I'm here. We're all working together. It's my little version of socialism, I guess. So we're working for a common goal, and hopefully it's going to pay off the right way for everyone.
That's right.
No one's on the streets. It is extremely communal. Yeah, there is no little tags on things that this belongs to me and don't eat that banana because it's mine, or there's nothing like that here. So
that's awesome.
If it's there, eat it. If I will go around. They'll tell you, I don't know if it's because I'm the dad in me, but I do go around and turn off the lights, and I do turn off when that's not being used, or the fans in the restrooms still spinning for no reason, stuff like
that's
that.
Awesome.
Why are you turning the oven on at 2:00 in the afternoon with 100 degrees outside?
Guys, I'm going to cut in real quick. I've just noticed that we're speaking of people who do live here and the people who are able to work elsewhere. In our green room right now, we have Jeremy McPeak, our social media supervisor. I'm going to invite him into the group. If you guys
awesome.
Just hang on one moment.
Hey, there he is.
McPeak, what's happening, man?
I heard something about employees making $100,000, so I
No,
wanted to
billions.
jump in. Oh, millions, even better. happy to be a part of this now.
It's about time for all the contribution that you bring to United.
For the people, if they don't know, I don't expect everyone to know this, but Jeremy is our host and lead commentator for Championship Wrestling from Arizona, talking about different hats. He's our social media guy. He's handling other things on top of running his own business, which at one time included the NBA and still does, I'm thinking, XFL, WWE, and stuff like that. So, we have an awful lot of credentials with folks that work with us, including the dog.
Well, that's perfect because Nick just put up meet our team, and then we heard sport. So that's great. And you probably should introduce the audience to sport at one point. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Well, at any rate, so that's what we do here. And there's a lot of emails. There's a lot of I think one thing too, and Rick might agree with this, and everyone here has all worked for larger operations. Rick and I have a Disney background, so emails and inter-office communication and whatnot. You might send something from Lake Buena Vista to go to Burbank, and or guest relations going to talent relations to whatever, and you all have to work with each other, but you've never met one another necessarily. Just an email, let's say, or back then the Manila folder, and who knows where it ends up. But we're doing a very small version of that. Jeremy's in Arizona. We have an editor in Detroit that edits the Memphis version of our show. Our Spanish broadcast is produced in Boyle Heights. So it's all over the place.
That's right. I keep waiting for Nick to shift the camera to the left so we see the Turkish broadcast team. Like we do on
I'm working on the Russian broadcast team right now.
Excellent.
Привет.
Good. So Jeremy, man, what's the vision for United? What's going to happen with this little engine?
Well, good question, Rick. Hopefully you and David have the answer to that, but I'm excited to be a part of it. Certainly, in addition to being the play-by-play voice for Arizona, and now my dog is barking. I think she heard sport. In addition to being the play-by-play voice in Arizona, I'm also running social for Arizona, Hollywood, and United, and really excited to help tell the story of what we're doing as a team, kind of as you guys are doing right now, kind of painting the picture of who everybody is, and all the different employees that work for the organization. I'm excited to do that through social media as well, with behind-the-scenes clips, backstage stories, exclusive interviews, a lot of different content we're planning and talking about right now. So excited to start rolling that out here pretty quick.
Yeah, and it's really nice to work with you, by the way, man. You are a true pro and easy to get along with. So David, very, very grateful for the introduction to Mr. McPeak last year around this time. And again, it makes me happy to be part of your whole deal. That's for sure. So Nick, who else is part of the collective there, and what do they do at the house?
At the house, we also have John Roberts, who is an on-air talent for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Championship Wrestling from Arizona as an interviewer and a commentator. He's picked up quite a workload himself on show days and things like that in person. He's been our electric utility kind of jack of all trades, go-to Mr. Fix-It. But now that we're out of production for the time being in terms of new episodes, he is now our new researcher and archivist for United. We have at the house probably at least 50 hard drives, I would say, 4 terabytes roughly each one. And so there's years and years and years of footage and data and all kinds of videos. You can see some of them behind David on the counter there with that dog statue. There's a couple of hard drives there.
Next to the Muppets.
But next,
Kermit,
yes.
Kermit sitting on some of them right there.
But John Roberts has been able to be brought on as a great resource for pulling footage and things like that. I think for folks who aren't necessarily in video editing or even in television or film, they might not realize just how long that kind of task takes. It could, even if you're just pulling a couple of clips for, a small video package, that could take all day. It could take 2 days. It could take, if you have to restore footage, you have to have the right, cables and all that. there's a lot to it. And so having him on as a researcher, archivist, and now video editor, he's actually editing the Championship Wrestling presented by Amarillo Venom, which airs in the Amarillo market on Saturdays at 11 on News Channel 10 too, I believe. He is the host of that show as well, in addition to editing the show and talking with distributors and delivery and things like that. I don't know if we mentioned before, our friends in Memphis, Dustin and Maria Starr, they've brought tons and tons of eyes to our product as well, just with the Memphis show itself on CW. But as far as the people here at the Collective, I like to call it, we also have, when he's here, Billy Trask, who was our main editor, and also he directs our shows. In addition to the NWA Power, he directs all the Hollywood shows, and is a little bit of a production factory in himself. And in addition to him, we also have producer Peter Avalon, who the fans of Arizona will know as producer. Fans of AEW know him as the librarian, and fans of Hollywood know him as either Professional Peter or Pretty Peter, depending on when you watched our show. But Peter he does voiceovers, and he directs some of the shoots and some of the programming that we do for Arizona in post-production, in addition to being I guess he's the lead producer for Arizona. Is that I'm not sure which
producer of the show.
Yeah.
Along with Mick Greenwood.
Yeah. Yeah, along with Mick Greenwood, showrunner, and I'd say production lead as well. So everyone, like I said, everyone wears different hats, and we're all learning different things at the same time. So being under the roof.
And then when people come to town, we're also the Motel 6. So it's not it's not odd to come and trip over a Drew Gulak or Chris Dickinson or someone like that if they're in town for not even working for us or for someone else, because this is pro wrestling, and some promoters don't put them up. So they know there's room here.
Yeah. A phrase that David likes to use is that he creates monsters. And when he says that, I don't think he means that just literally with like the wrestlers that he makes. I think he's turning all of us into production monsters and beasts, so that if for any situation we step into. I also, before I was working for the government, I spent several years working on set for different projects around Los Angeles. And so the experience that I have working with David puts me into, once I step back on set or anytime that I have, I'm already thinking 10 steps ahead of everybody else because I know all the steps that I need to get to. So being here at the Albers Collective, we are able to, kind of anticipate what's going forward and, make more well-rounded professionals as opposed to someone who's like, that's not my problem. I'm someone who's looking to fix problems, not to pass it on to someone else.
Well, that's a great quality in any line of work, man, especially this one. And we have silence, radio silence. That's all right. It's bound to happen with 4 people on. Do you know, Nick? Do we have is Todd Kennelly out there in Never Never Land? He had buzzed.
I'm gonna get a hold of Todd Kennelly right now. Yeah, because I thought I had him, but I'm gonna reach out to him again right now. While I'm getting a hold of Todd, I was wondering if we'd be able to talk about what's next for United, since we're collecting here today, not just to talk about our history, but to also and meet our team, but also to go into what our next steps are and what we're going to be looking forward to via social media, via our programming, etc. If either Rick or Jeremy would speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, Jeremy, please take it away.
Yeah, so we've been planning. There's a group of, 8 or 10 of us, I guess, that have been planning and talking now for 2 or 3 weeks about different types of content ideas, regular series that we can produce and release on social media. And we are getting very close to launching those. So I know David and a number of our talents were in studio there in the compound, or collective, I think Nick said, in the collective this past weekend. Recording all day Saturday and I think part of Sunday. So I know there's a lot of great content in the can that we're going to be cutting up and distributing on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, both on our United channels, YouTube as well, United channels, Hollywood channels, and Arizona channels. So excited to get that content out there and really start pulling back the curtain and letting fans see more about what the United Wrestling Network really is.
Fair enough. Yeah, and Nick, from my perspective, and I'll just come out and say it. I think, look, you guys have been doing this for so long, and you have such a wealth of material, and such a great distribution network. And when I look at it, in my mind, you guys deserve a lot more accolades for what you do than you're currently getting. Not like you don't have dedicated fans, because you do. You obviously have a great product, but from the outside looking in, and I hope I'm becoming more and more of an insider one of these days, hopefully. But to me, I see, and I think that's why you put the little engine that could up there. Well, we've talked about it. I see this group, this collective, as you said, who is so good at what they do, but haven't become AEW yet. Obviously, you didn't start with $100 million either, and a guy who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars and God knows what else. So everything you've done, you've done almost, as the old adage says, in my mind, even though you have all the millions into it you mentioned, over all those years, that's not a lot at all for what you produced. So in a lot of ways, it's been done with very little resources, spit and tissue paper, if you will. And the question is, at this point, when you're really poised and ready to take the leap to major success, which I firmly believe you guys are, what does it take to get there? Is it the next Stone Cold? I mean, that's always great. We talk about stuff like that all the time. The entire industry talks about that. But even if you come across the next Stone Cold, and God knows, David, between you and I, we have discovered and created more stars than probably anybody else in the industry. But unless you or we have the platform to showcase a Stone Cold and The Rock in the manner they deserve, and I mean like major cable or whatever it might be, it's difficult to do that. So I think, Nick, what's next is marshaling all of the resources, so to speak, and loading the cannons and pointing it in direction where the company really can expand. And in my mind, that's potentially through reality television. The industry, the reality or unscripted industry, is ripe for that right now. And to do that, let's focus on that for a second. We've talked a lot philosophically about letting people behind the curtain, and David, as well. I know you're very friendly with Jim Cornette. Jim and I are not the greatest of pals. Jim, this is the stuff that he hates, obviously. But Jim is a purist. And it's been very interesting working with you, because I oftentimes look at you as a wrestling purist, yet at the same time you've been so wide open and accommodating about, let's pull the curtain back and let people in. And Nick and Jeremy, what I think is key to do is, how do we get to the next level? Well, unless Tony Khan throws $100 million at us tomorrow, we've got to come up with something unique. So the fans that are out there watching right now, the ones that are going to watch later, the ones after that, I would say this, and Jeremy, this is being so much driven by you. Fans, we're going to tell you a story of a company who has scratched and clawed to get to where they are right now, which is poised to, in my mind, truly, hopefully, eventually be the next big thing. So we're going to be looking through this amazing content that's being created by Jeremy, by Todd Kennelly, by Nick, by Ken Hauser, and a bunch of others. We're going to do our best to engage. I'm talking to the fans now, to engage you, go deeper behind that curtain than ever before, and ask you for your support to get behind us and to root for us as we fight to go to that next level. That's what I wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
All right. Radio silence again. Jeremy was going to pick it up. What are your efforts right now, Jeremy? And here's I guess I can set up something for Jeremy.
Yeah.
So I have never been a promoter, and I've tried to limit the promoter side of me in my title, because we really don't promote live events anymore. I think of myself more as a producer, or I dare say a studio head that has, you have this and you have this and you have this and you're bringing it all together. And then there's a marketing and promotion side to it, but we're not necessarily promoting shows to sell tickets. So I haven't embraced for all these years the internet. I just haven't. I always looked at, you called me a purist earlier. I do come from that 90s mentality that, the internet helped kill the success of what pro wrestling was. The secrets, the the kayfabe, just the mystique of the aura of professional wrestling. Just like magicians, you try to keep that to yourself. The internet exposed that, and I was a part of it when it was really good. And through the years, as the internet gets more and more involved, how you know, I'm trying to think of the right word. How when you just imagine, we're all pretty much the same age area than Nick. Nick's younger than us, but you know, if you had a VHS tape and you made a copy and you made a copy and you made a copy and you made a copy, by the time you're the last guy to get the copy, it's been so diluted. It's so washed out. It's so, I don't want to watch that anymore. The same could be said for wrestling talent too. So if you want to go from George Hackenschmidt to Lou Thesz to Pat O'Connor to Ric Flair, or to Harley Race to a Ric Flair, it's as great as performer Ric Flair is. In reality, he's not that great of a performer as what Lou Thesz was. So I never embraced the internet. And so that's a long way to say now in 2020, I have to embrace it. And luckily we have a good guy with us in Jeremy McPeak who understands it. I don't understand it.
Well, hopefully I understand it. The crazy thing about the internet and social media today is that it's changing constantly. You know, feels like every 6 months there's a new social media platform out there. There's a new features that Twitter or Facebook or Instagram are rolling out. But that's what I love. I love that mode of storytelling. I was a journalism major way back when and wanted to write for Sports Illustrated someday, but really fell in love with the digital side of storytelling and be able to tell those stories about athletes and entertainers through the written word, but also video, through photos, through now GIFs and TikTok dances and all kinds of stuff. So I love it. It's my passion. I do it 24/7 for not only United Wrestling, but a lot of other clients, including the NFL, the NBA, Fiesta Bowl, Women's Premier Soccer League. So that's what I do. That's what I love. And I'm super excited about now really applying a lot of those things that I've learned over the years towards this project and towards United Wrestling to hopefully get more fans to follow us and engage with us and embrace the brand and really fall in love with the stories that we're telling on TV and that behind the scenes story of who we all are as people coming together for something that we all have a passion about. So I'm excited about it. And as Rick said, I'll make the plea as well to our fans watching and those who watch later. If you could follow United Wrestling Network on Instagram and Facebook, United Wrestling on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming that I think you're really going to enjoy.
All right, so
Thank you,
David,
Jeremy. I'm going to bring in, okay. I would say we have Todd Kennelly, if I could bring him in.
Awesome.
As well. So, yeah.
In the car, Todd in the car.
Yes.
Yeah,
TK, you there?
What's up, everybody? It's getting busy in here. Not in the car, but in the chat.
Yeah.
So Todd, David wanted to take this opportunity to fire you publicly.
Okay, it's about time. You wouldn't be the first, you won't be the last, probably.
We've never fired you, have we?
No. I left a couple times. You were gracious enough to bring me back when I made some questionable decisions over the years. But yes, no, United's always been a great home for me and what I love to do.
And
So,
so
Todd,
if you're wondering, Todd is not only the lead broadcaster for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, he also works behind the scenes here, like we were mentioning with others. He's a writer for us. He does publicity with us. He helps promote live events. The Irvine Improv Coastline Clash we did a year ago wouldn't have happened without Todd. So, and now we're working on a relationship with the parent company, Levity Live, and that's because of Todd as well. So, again, we're all working for the same goal.
No doubt.
So Todd, what's different about United from all the other organizations that you've worked with or even currently work with?
I would just say for me, it's just, the longevity. A lot of us have been in it for years, and it really becomes a family. And people learn to wear so many different hats, and become so talented at what they do. And then, like I'm sure Dave has mentioned, find great opportunities. But from production to commentary team to in-ring talent, I think you're just getting such a great education, not only in the sports entertainment and pro wrestling business, but in the television business. I mean, it really has become it's become a university in a sense, a clinic in terms of learning the craft and learning how to work on television, learning timing, taking cues. And I've worked just about everywhere. I was on live TV every week for a while, flying out to Orlando for Impact Wrestling. And what's done at United is top notch. It's real TV. The segments are timed. I've got a producer in my ear counting me into breaks, counting me into replays. It's as professional or more professional than most places I've been. It really is the real deal. I can speak on that, firsthand.
And then Todd, question for Todd and Nick, since you're both office, administrative, management, and also talent. What's it like backstage at a United show, being Hollywood or Arizona? What's the locker room vibe like compared to that at other companies you've been?
I can speak on that. It's absolutely, again, that family atmosphere. There's no egos. Everybody's willing to help out in any way they can, and everybody's helping to lift the other person up to the next level. I think there really is that sense of pride in the brand and trying to strengthen it as a whole. I never really have seen that big time mentality of it really is that there's no I in team. Everybody's it's a team mentality. There's no big egos. It's funny that we're championship wrestling from Hollywood, at least one of our brands, but it's very much not that Hollywood mentality of every man for himself. It's a team environment for sure.
It's always interesting when you see someone from the outside, whether it's a WWE refugee who just let go and they're looking for a place to live for a while, and they end up with us for a couple of episodes. But the higher they are on their totem pole, a former WWE champion, whatnot, main event guy, Madison Square Garden type guy, and they come work for us and they're getting a premium wage, but we always get that writer. They want their own dressing room. They want this, they want that. Within minutes of being in the theater, they're collected with everybody else in the main locker room and watching on the monitors and they're acting. They rarely use the space that we carved out for them in their own dressing rooms or catering or whatever you might want to put on the writer. I've, not just to boast, but I have prided myself on working with good people. If they're not good, they don't last. I want to know them as humans first. I want to know their family. I want to know where they're from. I want to know why they're doing this. I think that's more the producer in me, especially having a news background as well. I want to know their story and understand who they are as humans in order to book them in something. It's tough enough when a talent is young and they don't even know who they are yet as an adult or as anything. They're still a kid. We were all there. But trying to pull out of them their true talent or whatever's in their heart and put that into their performance, that's what I try to do day in and day out when I'm with talent. And I would say 98% of the time, and that's why people have been with us for so long. Look, I've been with Todd for 20 years almost, if not 20 years. And Nick has been with us the whole time. Jeremy's been with us for a long time too, in the longevity of Arizona. Greg Young, another guy on our team, he's been with me since the mid '90s. So I do my best at keeping people. And if you watch the Hollywood show from beginning to end, Peter Avalon's name came up earlier. Peter Avalon was there 10 years ago. So you always have good people around you in making stuff happen. I really don't care if you know how to wrestle. I want to know if you're a good guy and you're going to show up and you're going to take instructions and you're producible. So.
Well, I think you just very succinctly stated the reasons for not only your longevity in this business, but why people are willing to come back year after year for the atmosphere you've all managed to create and maintain. So kudos to you guys, because I know in this world, and especially in this business, it ain't easy. And that's a big part of what makes me glad to be a new member to the United team.
Yeah, it's interesting enough, Rick. You said early on that you caught the Hollywood program 8 years ago or so, but the first shows we ever shot were at the Galaxy, and the reason we got that was because of you. I called you to get the building, so it's people are always in my mind. It's like, who can you go to get what you need? And well, this guy has this, or this guy has a casket for a casket match, or this guy has the cage, or this guy has better canvases than this person. You have to have that Rolodex. I think that's what makes a good producer. If I could impress that upon anybody, always know the right people to contact and have a good relationship with them. Being in wrestling now 30 years and having better than a good name really helps, but it's taken a lot of work and being a diplomat to keep that notoriety.
Yeah, and Dave, I can back that. You absolutely have that good reputation in the industry. I've been in and out of it for about 30 years now, but more out than in the past 10. But nonetheless, there's still a lot of people that I'll stay in touch with or touch base with time to time. Names people will know, names they won't. The Barry Blooms, the Brad Smalls, guys like Paul Heyman even, or Scott Coker, the promoter of Bellator, president of Bellator. And everybody that I've brought United, Hollywood, or David Marquez up with always responds positively. And that's not something you find very often in the pro wrestling business. So again, just more props to you for that.
Thank you. Show business in general. Keep it a good name.
Yes.
In show business. But no, man, I know time's kind of running out here, and I don't know if we have fan questions or not, but I saw one pop up. That was pretty cool how you did that. Here I am, the guy from TV and live television. I see a little thing like that and get excited. What we're working on, it says, what's next for the night? Oh, here's one. I'd like to see the behind-the-scenes episode of the collective footage of the team seen through the eyes and narrative of sport. I don't know if you get that, Joseph. Sport, he's a little thoughtful right now, but he is the terrier.
Do we have a helmet cam on top of Sport to run around the collective?
Yeah, like Dave Letterman is running around.
Yes. Great TV.
That's what Dave Lagana should have.
Carneyland.
But what I was going to say is, California has finally opened up. The governor here is allowing us to start producing shows again next month. And we're getting ready to go back into production and produce new episodes. The last 6-7 weeks, maybe 9, closer to maybe 9 weeks, I'm not sure, of running reruns is not my bag. I'm not a real big fan of that. So right now at the theater, the Ocean View Pavilion, we're making ways to get ready to produce shows again. Funny enough, we're now a destination for other pro wrestling companies. I've been contacted by at least 6 of them in the last 48 hours. Hey, can we use your building? Because one, the reputation that Rick talked about, but 2, we have the resources to do what they need. And we'll see who we end up working with and how we do this. We're also working on another piece of technology that I'm not going to go into right now that hopefully will allow more fan interaction while we tape or shoot the show. So all of that, we'll roll that out together here in the next week or 2. We have consultants everywhere like Nelson Swagler and people at In Demand. And there's a ton of people who are on top of us trying to help get us to do things, but now we're just getting ready to do it. So we're on the very bottom level of what they've already done in Orlando.
Right. Now, David, apart from getting back to the live events and whatnot, since we are out of time, maybe a good place to wrap up would to throw back to Jeremy and to Nick for a moment, and maybe you guys can tell our people that are watching out there what to expect over the next few weeks, not insofar as the live events are concerned, but on our new program that we've been working on these past few weeks.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. Okay. So we have a number of new programs, or should I say features, coming to our social media and our online presence, whether at the website or through our different social channels. We're looking to highlight more of our talent and to get more in-depth. So we have a number of sit-down interviews and things along that nature. We also will have a podcast as well. And we are also going to be showing the fans a little bit more of the kind of like along the lines of this talk. You'll be seeing a little bit more of how the business of the United works. So we'll be pulling back the curtain more than we have before, and showing just what the business of it is like. So, Jeremy, if you can color in a little bit more detail on those, be my guest.
Yeah, I think every time I start talking, the dog starts barking. So forgive me, but yeah. So we've got several new segments. One we're calling Work Rate, which is a wrestling term, of course, but it's showing kind of behind the scenes of who we are as a company and all the people involved. We're gonna have another segment coming out called The Push, where we are promoting some of our current stars of both Hollywood and Arizona, and then we're going to introduce Heritage Hall, which is a segment looking at the rich history of the United Wrestling Network and some of the successful wrestlers who have performed with us over the years and have gone on to WWE, AEW, NWA, New Japan, wherever it is. I think people will be surprised to see some of those names and some of those old classic matches that we're going to dust off from the vault and post on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, guys, great first start. And Nick, I have to tell you that my producer of my podcast has been watching this, and he's a little jealous because we use StreamYard every week, and you have managed to uncover a whole bunch of features in your first one that we didn't even know existed. So
that's Marquez mentality.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the Marquez mentality, like I said. And you mentioned I'm a little younger than the rest of you. I am a child prodigy, so I'll go with that. Yeah.
Fair enough. Who's doing the sign-off? Todd Kennelly?
Sure. Be on the lookout for all those new segments, and especially when it's time to get back in the squared circle under the bright lights, and it's time once again to fight on.
Good job, guys.
Stay safe, everyone.
All right. Thank you.